Have you ever seen someone's entire world just shatter in a single moment? The look on my ex's face when I walked into that boardroom was nothing short of a masterpiece. It was this perfect sculpture of shock, confusion, and a horror that was slowly dawning on her. To her, I was a ghost, a memory from a past she'd buried. The guy she once called her passion project, right before she decided she'd rather have a finished product. To her new, wealthy boss sitting right next to her, I was just some guy he didn't recognize. But to the people who actually mattered in that room, I was the man who had just bought their entire company. Now, to understand how the guy she left in a tiny apartment ended up in charge of her corner office, we need to go back 3 years. To the night she looked me in the eye and told me I just wasn't ambitious enough. Her name was Sarah, and for 2 years my world spun around her. We met in a coffee shop, both of us glued to our laptops, trying to build something out of nothing. I was coding the bones of a data analytics app, and she was grinding for her MBA. We felt like a team. I'd cheer her on through these marathon study sessions, and she'd bring me coffee, telling me my idea was going to change the world. We shared everything, our dreams, our fears, and a tiny, way-too-expensive apartment. Then she graduated and landed a great job at Innovate Dynamics, a mid-tier tech firm with a flashy reputation. At first, I was her #1 fan, so proud. She was brilliant and she deserved it all, but then something started to change. The stories about her work weren't about the cool projects anymore. They were about her boss, Mark. It was always, Mark has a corner office. Mark drives a German sports car. Mark took the team to a Michelin-star restaurant. These details just dripped into our life like a slow poison, all while I was still working my day job to keep the lights on and spending every other waking moment at our kitchen table, coding my startup, Nexus Data, into existence. My progress was measured in lines of code, not fancy dinners. The gap between us just kept getting wider. Our cozy nights in were replaced by her networking events. Our shared dreams were replaced by her shiny new ambitions. I tried to keep her involved, telling her about a breakthrough with my algorithm or how I was close to getting a small round of seed funding. She'd just pat my arm, her eyes vacant, and say, "That's nice, Alex." Her mind was already somewhere else. The end was brutally simple. It was a Tuesday. She came home in an expensive new outfit, one I knew we couldn't afford, and just laid it all out. "Alex, this isn't working," she said, refusing to meet my eyes. "What isn't, Sarah? Talk to me. We can fix anything." She finally looked at me, and all the warmth was gone. It was just a cold, hard calculation. "I can't do this anymore. I can't keep pouring my energy into a dream that's going nowhere. Mark, he sees my potential. He wants to give me the world. You want to build it from scratch, and I just don't have time to wait." But it was her next words that really broke me. "I need a partner, Alex, not a project." She was gone by the weekend. A week later, her social media was a highlight reel of her and Mark on some lavish trip. She decashed in our 2 years for a shinier future. And I was left alone in that apartment with a broken heart and a half-finished line of code blinking on my screen. I gave myself 1 week to fall apart. I let the grief hit me. I ordered pizza, I didn't shave, and I just stared at that blinking cursor, her words echoing in my head. Not a project. She saw my dream as a liability. And then something in me just snapped. The pain was replaced by a quiet, cold anger. She was wrong. My dream wasn't a burden, it was my purpose. Her leaving wasn't the end. It was a head start. No more distractions. No more splitting my focus. It was time to prove her wrong. But a funny thing happened over the next few months. The need to prove her wrong slowly faded and was replaced by a burning desire to prove myself right. The next 3 years were an absolute blur of 18-hour days, fueled by instant coffee and the constant hum of servers. I ditched that old apartment for a smaller one and poured every single penny into Nexus Data. I got that seed funding, then a bigger round. My app, designed to streamline corporate data, landed its first client, then its second, then its 10th. I hired my first employee, then my 10th, then my 50th. We were the underdogs, this lean, hungry team running circles around the giants in the tech world. We didn't have fancy offices or expense accounts for Michelin-star meals. We just had a shared vision and a belief in our product that you couldn't fake. We worked hard, we moved fast, and we grew. While I was building my own little empire, I had my head down. I wasn't paying attention to the rest of the industry. I never looked her up on social media, never asked our old friends how she was doing. She and Mark were a chapter of my life I had no desire to reread. And then, a little twist of fate. A major competitor, Innovate Dynamics, stumbled, badly. They'd bet the farm on a new product that totally flopped, leaving them financially exposed. Their tech was getting old, but their client list, long and valuable. For Nexus Data, it was the perfect move. A chance to triple our market share overnight. My board was all over it. We spent weeks on due diligence, with lawyers and accountants digging through their books. Honestly, the company's name didn't even register with me. It was just a target, an asset. It wasn't until we were drawing up the final acquisition papers that I saw the list of key personnel for the transition meeting. It was supposed to be a standard formality, a meeting to introduce the new ownership. And then I saw the names. Mark Reynolds, Chief Operating Officer. Sarah Vance, Vice President of Strategic Development. I just leaned back in my chair, and this slow smile spread across my face. It wasn't about revenge, not really. It was just the pure, beautiful irony of it all. The universe apparently has a killer sense of humor. My assistant asked if I wanted to send someone else to the meeting. No, I said, that smile still on my face. I'll be handling this one myself. The morning of the meeting, I felt calm. 3 years ago, I would have fantasized about this moment. Striding in, making a big speech, watching them crumble. But standing there, adjusting the tie on my tailored suit, a suit that cost more than a year's rent on our old apartment, I just felt focused. This wasn't personal anymore. It was business. I walked into the Innovate Dynamics headquarters. I'd only ever seen the building from the outside. The lobby was all glass and steel, meant to be impressive, but it just felt cold. I was escorted to the top-floor conference room. Through the glass wall, I saw them. The board members, a bunch of grim-looking older guys. And right there at the middle of the table were Mark and Sarah, laughing at something he'd said. She looked good, polished, professional, confident. She was holding a pen, ready to take notes, looking every bit the part of a woman in charge of her world. My CFO went in first, then my lawyer. Then, I pushed open the heavy glass door and stepped inside. For a second, nobody noticed me. The room was filled with that low hum of pre-meeting chatter. Then, one of the board members I knew stood up. "Gentlemen, if I could have your attention." The room went quiet. Every head turned to the door, including Sarah S. Our eyes met. And that's when it happened. She just froze. It wasn't a gasp. It wasn't a sound at all. It was like all the energy, all the motion just left her body. The pen slipped from her hand and clattered on the shiny mahogany table. Her confident smile evaporated. Her skin went from a healthy glow to a pale, chalky white, and her eyes were a perfect storm of disbelief, shock, and a horrible, dawning realization. Mark, completely clueless, looked from her to me with pure annoyance. "Sorry, can we help you? This is a private meeting." The board member cleared his throat. "Mark, this is Alex Sterling. He's the reason we're all here." Mark's arrogant look started to crack, replaced by confusion. "Sterling? From Nexus Data?" He'd heard of us. I knew he had. We'd been eating their lunch for months. "The very same," the board member confirmed. "As of 9 a.m. this morning, Nexus Data has completed its acquisition of Innovate Dynamics. Mr. Sterling is the founder, CEO, and new majority shareholder." You could feel the air get sucked out of the room. The entire power dynamic just tilted and crashed down with me at the center. Mark's face went from confusion to utter disbelief. He looked at me, then at Sarah's completely frozen expression, then back at me as the pieces finally clicked into place. The swagger he wore like a suit was just gone. I didn't even look at him. My eyes were locked on Sarah, the woman who told me I wasn't ambitious enough. The woman who left because she didn't have time to wait for my dream to come true. Turns out, her dream had just been bought by mine. I walked to the head of the table, the chairman's seat, and set my briefcase down with a soft, final click. "Good morning, everyone," I said, my voice perfectly calm and steady. "I'm Alex. Shall we get started? We have a lot to discuss." The aftermath was surprisingly quiet. There wasn't some big, dramatic showdown. Mark was made redundant. Sarah resigned about a week later. She did try to talk to me once, catching me in a hallway. She started to apologize, her voice trembling, but I just looked at her and realized I felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, just pity. She wasn't some villain in my story. She was just a person who made a choice based on what she wanted in that moment. And in the end, her choice forced me to become a person who moved on. My success wasn't my revenge on her. It was my reward for finally believing in myself. It turns out the best revenge isn't getting even. It's building a life so good you forget you were ever looking for revenge in the first place. Sometimes, the moments that feel like a dead end are really just a sharp turn onto a better road. Being told you're not enough can be the very thing that lights a fire under you. What's a time in your life when a setback ended up being your greatest comeback? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, make sure you subscribe for more.